There are many instincts, many drives, greed, lust, vengeance, jealousy, anger, and we have to not click and suddenly flip out and go this way or that way. Because when you do that, you become vulnerable to the enemy's schemes against you. There are those who deal with evil entities, and you who are born again, are in a war, and you also are given power. The devil is real. When I first came to the Lord, that was the hardest time I had believing that the devil was real. I said, yeah, God, but the devil, that's kind of... But when you look at things like Nazi Germany, Adolf Hitler, the Holocaust, the obsession to destroy the Jewish people, there's no words less than satanic than to describe that. There is evil. There's a spirit of evil in the world. Behind evil, there is a force of evil. That is what the devil is. That is what Satan is. If you're a child of God, he's at war with you. If you're not a child of God, he's at war with you. But if you're a child of God, he's more threatened by you. But at the same time, you have power given to you by God, and you are also given wisdom to overcome. And if you don't realize you're in a fight, you're going to be you're going to be losing when you should be winning. So there are things that you need to know to fight wisely. Tonight, I'm going to give you some principles and keys to enable you to fight wise, strong, powerful, and overcome the enemy, the serpent. And the key will be looking at something, because the Bible speaks of the enemy symbolized by the serpent. Now, it's not that snakes are evil. It's that the serpent was used as a symbol of the enemy. And when you look at the physical attributes of snakes, you see there are all sorts of things open up about spiritual secrets and keys and principles in dealing with the enemy. In Israel, where the Bible is written, they have a wide variety of snakes, from under 1 foot to snakes that are more than 6 feet long, and some that can be lethal. Snakes are found throughout in Israel, as they are in most places. In Genesis, it speaks of the Garden of Eden, and it speaks of the serpent. The enemy was either appearing as one or was using one, but it appears he takes the form of a serpent. And it becomes the symbol of him. It's the symbol of evil, leads to the fall of man. Some of you heard of a guy named Albert Schweitzer. He was renowned. He was a humanitarian. He was renowned for his reverence for all life, didn't want to kill anything, and yet he kept a gun to shoot snakes, which says that snakes have this aura about them of evil. In the Bible, it speaks several times, speaks of something called Leviathan, or the gliding serpent. It speaks in Revelation 12, verse 9. It says, and the great dragon, the enemy, was thrown down, the serpent of old, who is called the devil, who deceives the whole world, was thrown down, and his angels were thrown down with him. Well, what's he called? He's called the dragon here, the great dragon, but he's called here the serpent, or the ancient serpent. The enemy is a serpent in a sense. Again, not that snakes are evil, but they're a symbol. Why? Snakes slither, they twist, they go by subterfuge. So the enemy is a twister. The snakes in the natural, they're going to give us keys to the supernatural. One of the words in Hebrew for serpent is the word tanin. Try it. Tanin is interesting because it means serpent in Hebrew, but it also means dragon. Both are symbols of the enemy, the old dragon. But the central word in Hebrew for the serpent is this word I'm going to teach you, and the word in Hebrew is Nahash. Try it. Listen to it. Remember how some of the Hebrew words, it actually sounds like what they are? Like the Holy Spirit, ruach, the wind passing. But Nahash, what does that sound like? Sounds like a snake. Sounds like hissing. Sounds like a slithering creature, Nahash. And what it's linked to a verb. There's a verb, Nahash, which actually means to practice the occult, an enchantment, which is linked to serpent. So here again is the link of the enemy. Here's the word for snakes, but it's linked to occult. Even the word for the occult is there. And throughout the ancient world, they associated, even the pagan world associated Serpents with the occult or with these dark forces, the Delphic oracles with the link to pythons, or snakes dominating drug-induced visions in South America, or American Indians, snakes playing a major role in myths of Australia. Python worship is in Africa. There are cobra cults in India. The Aztecs worshipped a feathered serpent. The snake is a symbol of the snake dancers of the Hopi Indians, Burmese snake charmers. These are all links between witchcraft and snakes. And again, it's not about the snake, it's about the symbol. In India, there's this strong link of serpents in religion. Particularly, there's a deity called Shiva who is destruction, and the symbol is the cobra. The headquarters of one of the foremost radical Hindu anti-Christian groups is in a city called Nagpur. Nagpur, every year they meet, Nagpur means the place of the serpent. And in fact, there was an agenda, the radical Hindu party, which is very anti-Christian in India, and they had an agenda for the nation. It was called NAG, N-A-G. It was put together, but NAG means serpent. It was to rule over India. But notice also, Nahash means something else. It's not just that. Nahash also sounds like something else, which is what it means. Nahash means whisper. Shh. It means like as if you're going to tell a secret, or you're going to gossip, or you're going to do something, or like the enemy speaking to Eve. Nahash. Sounds like it. It's the enemy. It's the nature of the enemy. Now, what do we see about actual snakes that's going to give you keys to overcome in your life in spiritual warfare? It's fascinating. First of all, serpents do not have external ears like we do. They might perceive some low-frequency sounds, and there are some vipers that appear to form infrared images of things. There are snakes that seem to see the warmth of animals. But people, they don't have real ears as we do. People ask, what does the enemy know? Like, what does he know supernatural? What does he know about the future? Does he know it all? Well, again, snakes there's much they don't know, yet snakes can see sometimes their victims, again, by the heat. The enemy and the forces of darkness, they can know certain things that we don't know, just like the occult realm can know certain things. People go to fortune tellers, and there are stories of sometimes they say something that's true, but then it always ends up bringing darkness in their life. Always ends up destroying. Every life that gets into the occult is always going to be harmed by it. Everyone. A serpent can sense certain things, but then they don't know other things. Well, the enemy can know certain things about the future, but he's not God. He doesn't know other things. Now think about it. When Messiah was going to Jerusalem, it says the enemy spoke through Peter and tried to stop him from going to Jerusalem. Well, why? Because he knew he was going to go there to die for sins, which was going to undo the power of the enemy. So he tries to stop the Lord from going to the cross. Yet, later on, what happens? He enters Judas to betray Messiah to bring him to the cross. Makes no sense. It's going to defeat him. But it's not clear thinking, it's twisted thinking, because evil is twisted thinking, just like a snake is twisted. That's why it explains sometimes the occult can get one thing right or another thing, but it's always messed up in the end. A snake acts instinctively, not much reflection. There's certain signals, almost an automatic response. That's the nature of darkness. That's the nature of the enemy. It's short-sighted. Darkness is short-sighted. The nature, and what the enemy tries to do in your life is he tries to use short-sightedness, and if you go short-sighted, you become vulnerable to him. When you're being tempted, it's always short-sighted. Get this thrill right now, but don't think about what's going to happen afterwards. People who are under the influence of the enemy big time, they tend to be more people of instinct. News of sexual predators in the news by instinct. They're going by lust, instinct. Drug addicts, instinct. Criminals, instinct. So in overcoming the enemy, we have to first say we are not going to go by instinct or by the flesh. There are many instincts, many drives, greed, lust, vengeance, jealousy, anger, and we have to not click and suddenly flip out and go this way or that way. Because when you do that, you become vulnerable to the enemy's schemes against you. When you go, for instance, you're ready, your things are getting heated, and you're ready to blow your temper and get into an argument, that's instinct. The enemy's going to win if you do that. You're being tempted by that sin. If you just go with the instinct, you're going to lose. But you don't have to go with instinct. You can go against it. You are not of that, because you're not a serpent. He's a serpent. You're not under. If you're saved, you're of God, not of the enemy. That means you're not to be ruled by your flesh and not to be ruled by instinct or by habit. You are to be led by the Spirit of God. If you choose that, you can overcome. Things may look good, and it may be not a person. It may be a movement that's off. It may look good, sound holy, sound spirit-filled, sound righteous, but the effect is death. And it's not only in that, it's even in our thoughts. Meaning the enemy can want you to think certain thoughts that seem good, they seem holy, righteous, but they end up being destruction. Where in other words, if you've ever felt good, you're judging somebody and you feel so self-righteous. But it's not self-righteous, it's a trick of the enemy to destroy you. Have you judged, have you bitter, but you think you're being righteous, you're being justified by judging that person, by condemning them, by having a righteous anger, but it's just death. One of the things the enemy always will seek to fool God's people, especially those who are seeking holiness or seeking more of God, is he makes them feel that they are holier than the rest. We are the spirit-filled ones. You know, the rest aren't really. We are the doctrinally sound ones, the rest are a little bit off. We are the real prayer warriors, the rest, we have to intercede for the rest because we're holier. And it's not that all those things, seeking sound doctrine, seeking the Spirit, seeking prayer, that's all right. But be careful of spiritual pride. They don't realize, and there have been some of the worst things in church history have been through that, spiritual pride. Or maybe there's a relationship that you've considered in your life, and it seems so warm and seems so good, and yet it will bring the destruction of your life, or the destruction of your walk, or the destruction of your marriage. Pride comes in like a snake, disguised as holy, biblical godliness. Hate and unforgiveness also does as well. And so does adultery. And so all these things. So understand the nature of serpents, the nature of the enemy. Be wise. Know the signs. It's not about how it appears. It's what's the heart of this? What is really behind it? What's the end of this? Does this match up with the Word of God? Is it the same Spirit? By faith, by the Word, I can discern what is true by the Word of God. And by being close to God, the closer you are to God, the more you can know when something is off. The more you're spending time in the Word, the more you can tell when something's off. Be so attuned, fixed on the good. It said that Ruth Graham was once in England and next to the head of Scotland Yard, and she said, and this guy, or was it the head or the guy who was a specialty in counterfeit money, and she said, oh, you must really be an expert and study all these things to recognize. He said, I don't study the counterfeit, I study the real. The more you study, and so therefore when something counterfeit comes, I can tell right away. And so it is with God. You need to get so grounded that you do not get moved to the right or the left of any new movement or doctrine or thing that comes that's not of God. Recognize what it is. Go through the appearance to see the real. But there's something else about the serpent. That's going to be the main thing I'm going to focus on now as we bring this home. There's something about the blood. The blood of serpents. And the thing about the blood of serpents is that a serpent is cold-blooded. A serpent means there's no warmth there. The serpent has no warmth of its own. It's cold-blooded. In other words, you get hot because you're warm-blooded. Your body heats up, but a serpent, no. A serpent has no warmth on the inside. Snakes are cold-blooded. They get warmth only from the outside. They get it from the sun, or they get it by having to heat themselves up by a rock. So the nature of evil is that evil is parasitic. It's got nothing, no real life of its own. It always seeks to take what's alive and kill it. That's what the enemy does. Seeks out blessings, and how can I kill it? Seeks out a healthy congregation, how can I kill it? Seeks out a healthy marriage, how can I kill it? How can I twist it? He has no warmth. The enemy has no warmth of his own, but he has a keen sense to sense where warmth is. And also when you really want to be on fire for the Lord, he wants to stop that right away. He'll do anything he can to stop the fire in your life. Distract you with television, distract you with a million other things, distract you with not being in God's presence to take away that fire. He has no warmth, but he senses warmth. So the enemy will always seek to destroy that. Whenever there's love, whenever there's something that's alive in God, you got to guard that thing. You have a marriage in God, you have to guard that marriage. You have a walk in God, it's alive. You got to guard your walk. You have love for God, guard it. You've got a devotion, guard it. You've got a calling from God, guard it. Guard the warmth. Your time with God is crucial. Your devotion every day is crucial. Otherwise, it grows cold. It says what will happen in the end times? The love of many will grow what? Cold. Love has to be protected. The inner fire of your walk, you got to protect it. You got to nurture it. And everything else. And don't let any the Bible says, don't let any bitter root develop. You get a bitter root, that'll kill love right away. Snakes. How does warmth get out of a house? Through openings. How do snakes get in? Through openings. Snakes come through openings. That's why it says, do not let any bitter root develop, and don't let give the devil no room. What is it? When you let bitterness come in your heart, you're giving the enemy room. Do not give him any opportunity. Do not let any bitterness, you have no room for it. You have no place for it or time for it. You have no salvation for it, because we cannot judge if we've been forgiven. Cast it away. Guard the warmth. Don't let your heart close up. What else do we see about a serpent with this warmth thing? Well, the warmth is all outside of a snake, not inside. So the nature of the enemy is that the warmth is only on the outside, not on the inside. The nature of people who are following evil or the devil is that their warmth is on the outside, not on the inside. It's not real. It's phony. It's shallow. People who use other people, and they'll act nice, but it's to use other people. But notice something else. What does it reveal about temptation? The nature of temptation is serpent-like. It's of the devil, so therefore, what does it tell you? It tells you that temptation, all the warmth is on the outside, there's nothing but coldness on the inside. What does that mean? There may be a relationship, and either you've dealt with it in your life, or you will deal with it, or hopefully you never will. But there's a relationship of something, adultery trying to get in, and it seems all warm, but it's on the outside. Inside is death. The warmth of sin, that's all on the outside. It's the warmth of some of you dealt with drinking, and I have the bottle. Well, it gave you comfort on the outside, but it gave you nothing on the inside. It made you colder, deader. The warmth of temptation, that little thing that I need, that little indulgence, I just want a little thrill of this or that pornography, that's all on the outside. It's death on the inside. And something else crucial in your life. I know somebody, when he was a little boy, he saw a snake. It was a venomous, deadly snake. And the snake was charging him as a boy. Charged him, and he ran, and it ran after him. And he screamed, and he ran into a barn, and a woman heard him scream and got the snake away, but it was a deadly snake. Now, some snakes can run fast, but they have a limitation on them. Why? They are cold-blooded. Because they are cold-blooded, snakes can run fast, but they can't really run long. They can't sustain it because they don't have heat. They can't sustain it. You can run long. Some people can run for a day. A snake can't. What does it say in Revelation 12? Verse 12, the devil knew he only had a short time. For this reason, it says, rejoice, O heavens, and you dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he only has a short time. One of the most important keys in overcoming the devil, overcoming temptation, overcoming discouragement, overcoming darkness, is this principle of cold-bloodedness, meaning evil can only go for a short time. The enemy can attack you, and when he attacks you, sometimes he'll come like a flood. And everything will go crazy. But he can't go long. That's the nature. Cold-blooded. So if you're being attacked by God, by the enemy here, cling to God. Hold on, because you'll outlast the enemy. Evildoers may have their way, they may slander you, do this, but hold on to God. In the end, God prevails, and those prevail who are with him. It says your judgment will go forth like noonday. Don't fret. Don't worry about evildoers. Not saying that you don't answer them, but don't fret about them. It says weeping endures for a night, but what? Joy comes in the morning for God's people. You're being tempted. Temptation is cold-blooded. It cannot last forever. Hold on. Hold on when you're being tempted. You're being threatened by the enemy or by people who are being used of the enemy. Hold on. Don't panic. Hold on. Hold on to God. Tight to God. It's going to pass. The panic, you're ready to panic. Don't panic. Hold on. It's going to pass. Because it's cold-blooded. And that's why often when the enemy comes, that's why he often comes like a flood. It's desperate like this in Revelation. Look what he did to Job. You know, he only could do it because God allowed it. He can't do it on his own. But the messenger comes into Job, says, look, your servants were killed. While he's speaking, another comes in, says, fire came down from the sky, burned up your sheep, burned up the servants. While he's still speaking, another comes in, another attack. Camels are gone, servants are killed. Another one, sons and daughters feasting, wind came down, the house collapsed, they're gone. Now, you know, when this happens, you know it's going to be a bad day. But it's a sign of the enemy. Every time we were going to move to a new building. Every time, all hell broke loose. Anyway, the first time, some of you can remember from the very beginnings of the ministry, and I'm speaking, I'm going to have to announce that we had to leave our place and go on the road. We were renting, had to go on the road. And that was the last service. And as I was about to say it, a guy flings back in a seizure. And everything goes crazy, and people are running to the person. Someone's trying to cast it out. There's a nurse going back, and they're going against it. Everything went crazy. And it threw the whole thing into chaos. Chaos. People didn't realize what I said. It was like chaos. We had to go on the road. It's like a sheep shepherd on the road, and the wolf is always going to go against them. But another time, we were in the first building we had in Lodi, and it was the time that I was announcing we're going to move to a larger building. But we're going to be on the road a little bit, or it's going to be a little bit. And as soon as I announce it, a guy goes back again. And it's not the same guy. I don't know if it's a franchise, but he goes back. He goes back in his seizure on the floor. And this is for those who remember. And then across the room, another person goes on the floor in a seizure, second seizure. And then somebody's in the bathroom and they have a seizure. That night we had like 2 or 3 ambulances, both all showing up, and they didn't know the other one showed up. But I said, wow, what is this? And the ones who were there the first said, we know what it is. This is the enemy just throwing chaos when you're about to move. But he comes in like that. I remember when I said yes to going to India on a mission. And we had 2 major crazy attacks the same day. And even using the same words, people who didn't know each other, it was the same words, weird stuff. And I remember trying to get on a plane to India, and it was just like 7 emergencies in one day. And then there were no tickets, and then I'm on the flight going to India, and I'm looking out the window and I see pieces of the engine falling out. Literally, they had to land. It's literally. He goes furious, crazy. It was funny. At the time, it wasn't funny. When that thing was falling out, I wasn't laughing at that time. But now we can laugh. But it was not funny at the time. Saying, the engine's falling apart. But evil is cold-blooded. It does not have a lot of time. And I mean, sometimes like you have an evil government. It could be a day, a year. It could be decades. But still, even the Soviet Union had to fall eventually. And God still anointed his people. The key is don't believe it. Not that certain things aren't happening. I'm not denying that, but don't believe it. It's not the final story with you. Don't get despairing. Don't get discouraged. Understand it's for a limited time, and no matter what it looks like. It's gonna pass, and you are going to win. If you stay in God's side and his will, you're gonna be on the winning side.
This is Jonathan Cahn. If you were blessed by the part of the message you just saw, you can get a copy of the full message and see it in its entirety, and you can see the full catalog of all my messages. Just go to hopeoftheworld.org/order, and you can get any message on DVD, CD, download them on MP4, MP3. Just go to hopeoftheworld.org/order.